Chloe, you can't leave me. You promised you'd always protect me. You can't just... Ah. The torrential rain blurred my vision as I chased the black Bentley, my voice swallowed by the storm. I didn't see the puddle until my foot plunged into it, sending me sprawling onto the slick asphalt. I watched, helpless, as the car's taillights disappeared into the downpour. Neither of the people inside even glanced back. I couldn't let her go. Pain shot through my leg, but I tried to get up, only to collapse again. And again. Defeated, I began to drag myself forward, crawling after the ghost of the car until the world faded to black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed. The dull ache in my leg was the only thing reminding me I was still alive. A doctor told me in a flat, professional tone that my injuries weren't serious. A few days of rest, and I'd be fine. They had, however, run a full battery of tests while I was out. The results would be back in 5 days, so I might as well stay put. I stared blankly at the wall as he listed off some instructions before leaving. I knew what this was about. Just a few weeks ago, I'd gone with Chloe to a prenatal checkup, and, at her insistence, I'd gotten a full physical myself. She'd picked up the results a few days later while I was at work, and told me everything was perfect. This new round of tests was just a way to jack up the bill. Whatever. My heart was already dead. What good was money now? It's not like I was some pathetic pushover, clinging to a cheating wife. It was just, our history was too deep. We were both orphans, abandoned kids who grew up in the same group home. She was 3 years older, the beautiful, capable girl who always looked out for me. I was the scrawny, sickly kid who looked like a strong gust of wind could carry him away. She was my protector. When they handed out snacks, she'd save half of hers for me after I'd wolf mine down. When other kids picked on me, she'd fight them off, then clean my scrapes and tell me it would be okay. Through school, she tutored me, packed my lunches, made sure I wore a coat when it was cold. Chloe was the sun in my bleak little world. Without her, I wouldn't have survived. Sometimes I thought being abandoned by my parents was the best thing that ever happened to me because it led me to her. With her by my side, I never once envied the kids with loving families. Chloe was my family, the only person in the world who mattered. Under her care, I grew stronger. By the time I graduated college, I was tall, athletic, and what most people would call handsome. Plenty of girls asked me out, but I turned them all down. After I got my first paycheck from my new job, I spent half of it orchestrating the perfect proposal with the help of a few friends. I could still see her face when I got down on one knee, holding out the ring. Her eyes welled up as she took it, and she threw her arms around my neck. "My Leo has finally grown up," she whispered. "Now it's your turn to take care of me." I lifted her off the ground, kissing her like I was starving. In that moment, I was the happiest man on earth. Our engagement and wedding were a blur of happiness. Soon after I was promoted to a director position at my firm, I asked her to quit her job. I wanted her home, relaxed, preparing for the family we dreamed of. I could provide for us now. I didn't want her grinding away at a desk like I was. A year later, she was pregnant. I bought a house in a good neighborhood, a new car for her, and whisked her away on weekend trips whenever I could. When work got crazy, I'd pay for her best friend to take her to a spa, or out for the day, all on my dime. My salary was good, but I spent almost all of it on her. She'd always tell me to be more careful, that we need to save for the baby, but I'd always surprise her with some new gift anyway. I just wanted to give her the world. Money was just something you worked harder to earn more of. So how do we end up here? It started at that prenatal appointment a few weeks ago. While she was with the doctor, I slipped out to get her favorite snack from a food truck down the street. When I got back, she was already in the waiting room, talking to a man who looked like a walking skeleton. He was hunched over, his skin a pale, waxy color, and he was trying to hand her a business card. Chloe ignored it, tossing it onto the table beside her with a look of pure annoyance. I rushed over and put my arm around her waist. "Chloe, what's going on?" I glared at the skeletal man. He just glanced at me with a dismissive smirk and walked away. I started to go after him, but Chloe held me back. "Leo, forget it. He's nobody," she said, her voice tight. "Hey, while we're here, why don't you get a full physical? You were complaining about your stomach the other day after that dinner with clients." I shot one last angry look at the man's retreating back before letting her pull me toward the lab. Her checkup was fine, and a few days later, she picked up my results and said I was perfectly healthy. I remember stroking her hair, joking, "See, your husband's in prime condition. If you weren't pregnant, I'd keep you up all night proving it." But after that day, the skeletons started showing up everywhere. Chloe grew distant, lost in thought, even though she tried to hide it with smiles and laughter. But I knew her better than anyone. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and feel the space next to me cold, knowing she was still awake. At first, I didn't take the guy seriously. I mean, look at him. He was ugly, frail, and looked like he had one foot in the grave. There was no way Chloe would leave me. A tall, handsome, successful husband who adored her for that. But I'd underestimated one thing. He was filthy rich. The man's name was Julian Vance, the sole heir to a West Coast tech mogul. His unhealthy habits, which turned out to be a cocktail of hard drugs and reckless living, had ravaged his body. He wasn't even 30, but he moved like a decrepit old man, coughing constantly, unable to stand up straight. He looked like he could drop dead at any moment. 3 days after I got my all clear from a doctor, I came home from work to the smell of dinner cooking. I kicked off my shoes, a happy smile on my face. Smells amazing. Don't tell me. Is that pot roast? I walked into the living room, and my smile froze. Julian Vance was sitting on my couch. He had one leg crossed over the other, watching me with that same signature smirk. Before I could process it, Chloe came out of the kitchen, carrying serving dishes. "You're home," she said, her voice eerily calm. She wouldn't look at me. "Wash up. Dinner's ready." I pointed a trembling finger at Julian. "Are you going to explain this?" "I ran into him on the street today," she mumbled. "He just stopped by for a minute." Julian stood up, still looking like he owned the place. "Well, you two enjoy your meal. I should get going. Chloe, think about what we discussed." He walked past me and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Your wife is a beautiful woman, and she can cook too. You're a lucky guy, huh?" "Huh." He laughed his way out the door. I wanted to punch him so badly, but I was terrified I'd actually kill him with one hit. That night, Chloe and I had our first real fight. Well, it wasn't a fight. It was me yelling, demanding answers, and her quietly trying to calm me down without offering a single explanation. I gave her the silent treatment for days. She kept acting like nothing had changed, but she looked exhausted, her eyes constantly red and swollen. Meanwhile, Julian became a constant presence in our lives. Chloe's attitude toward him softened from icy disdain to something tolerant. The worst part was when Julian and I would argue. She'd sometimes step in and tell me to back off to watch my temper. She'd say it was for my own health, but it felt like she was protecting him. Then, today, she dropped the bomb. She and Julian sat on one side of our dining table, me on the other. A negotiation. My face was grim, so was hers. Julian, as usual, looked bored and annoyingly smug. "Why?" I broke the silence, my voice cracking. "Just tell me why. Is it because of his money? Because he's a billionaire's son?" Chloe kept her eyes fixed on the table. "Leo, you know what it was like for us. Growing up in the system, always looked down on. I swore to myself that one day, no one would ever look down on me again. And our life isn't good enough. I've been killing myself to give you the best of everything, to live up to the promise I made when I proposed. Anything you wanted, I got it for you before you even had to ask. What more do you want from me?" My voice was thick with unshed tears, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. Chloe didn't answer, but I could hear her quiet, hitching sobs. "Oomph." Julian coughed. "You kill yourself, and this is all you have to show for it? Let me ask you, how much do you have in savings?" Cough, cough. "What kind of life, what kind of education can you give your child?" Cough. "This good life you think you're providing? From where I'm sitting, it just looks like you're keeping the lights on." Cough, cough. "If you really loved her, you'd let her go so she could be happy." Cough. "Instead of dragging her down with you. Why don't you save your breath?" I snapped, cutting him off. "Wouldn't want you to keel over right here." "Leo, don't be cruel." Chloe finally looked at me, her brow furrowed. "Julian's not well, but modern medicine is amazing. It's not a big deal." "Chloe, listen to yourself." I pleaded, turning back to her. "I get it, he has money, but you're not that naive. If he were a good man, if there was any hope for his health, I wouldn't stand in your way. But look at him. With all his family's resources, do you really think he'd be walking around like a corpse if there was a cure? You marry him, you'll be a widow before you know it. And you're the heir to a fortune. You really have to marry a pregnant, divorced woman? Are someone else's leftovers that appealing to you? Slap. The sound echoed in the quiet room. I cupped my stinging cheek, staring at Chloe in disbelief as she looked down at her own hand, horrified. You hit me? For him. "Leo, you went too far," she said, her voice shaking. "If you won't agree to a divorce, we'll see you in court. Let's go, Julian." She turned and walked out the door with him. For a second, I was frozen in shock. Then I ran after them, which led to the scene in the rain. I spent 5 days in that hospital bed. The test results came back, stomach cancer. Fortunately, they said it was a rare but early stage case. The hospital director himself came to my room. "Mr. Hayes," he said, "your condition is quite unique. Because of its rarity, the hospital board has decided to cover the full cost of your surgery. It would be an invaluable opportunity for our research and clinical experience." Honestly, hearing the word cancer barely registered. My heart was already gone. The rest of it didn't seem to matter. I signed the consent forms, and the surgery went smoothly. I spent the next 3 months recovering. They wouldn't let me leave until I was fully healed. In a strange twist, they told me that for my outstanding contribution to medical science, not only were all my medical bills waived, but they were also giving me a grant of $1 million. Nothing sparked any interest in me anymore. Not the cancer diagnosis, not the $1 million check. The day I was discharged, I quit my job. My boss came to my apartment, begging me to stay, offering a huge raise, but I felt nothing. The divorce from Chloe was finalized through lawyers. My life became a gray, meaningless fog. My apartment was a mess. I drank alone every night until I passed out, ignoring the doctor's warnings. One day, I ran out of booze. I threw on clothes I hadn't changed in days and shuffled out to the liquor store, hair uncombed, face unwashed. I was staring at the cracked sidewalk when a hand appeared in front of my face, a crisp $100 bill held between 2 fingers. "Honey, look at this poor man," a familiar voice said. "He looks so pitiful. Let's give him this. It's good karma, especially with the baby coming soon." I snapped my head up and met the eyes of the woman holding the money. "Leo, Chloe." We spoke at the same time. Standing before me were Chloe and Julian. She looked me up and down, her expression a mixture of shock and disgust. Julian just watched with his usual cold indifference. "I can't believe it," Chloe said, a cruel laugh escaping her lips. "It's only been a few months and you've ended up like this. I guess I really dodged a bullet. If I'd stayed with you, I'd probably be begging on some other street corner by now." "Huh? How can you be so vicious?" I stared at her, my eyes burning. "Vicious? Am I not telling the truth? I must have been blind to ever see anything in you. Thank God I got my vision back. You. I was so furious, my fingers shaking as I pointed at her, that I couldn't form a complete sentence. "What? Cat got your tongue?" she sneered. "Look, instead of getting angry, why don't you get a life? I know you hate me. The best revenge is living better than me. But, let's be honest." She gave me a pitying look. "This is probably as good as it's ever going to get for you." She looped her arm through Julian's. "Honey, I think we should wait until after the baby's born to order the wedding dress. I don't want to walk down the aisle with a baby bump." "Of course, my love. Whatever you want," Julian cooed, looking at her with adoration. They climbed into a luxury sedan parked at the curb without giving me a second glance. I forgot all about the liquor. I don't even remember how I got home. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the gaunt, filthy reflection that looked more like a ghost than a man. I grabbed handfuls of my greasy, overgrown hair and just sobbed. Afterward, I took a long shower, put on a new set of clothes, and went out to get a buzz cut. I felt pounds lighter walking out of the barbershop. The hospital money was still mostly there, over $900,000. I hadn't spent much besides on alcohol. I registered a small consulting firm. I didn't have the capital for a factory, so I started by landing clients and contracting with manufacturers. I'd always been a hard worker, and now that drive was sharpened by pure rage. I started landing deals that had previously required endless nights of schmoozing and drinking. Now they came easy. Within a few months, I had my own production facility. I started hiring, and my reputation for being fair and smart drew some of the best talent from my old company. As orders flooded in, the factory expanded. With the profits, I diversified, investing in other lucrative industries. When your luck turns, everything seems to go right. Soon, I was a rising star in the business world, with a net worth in the hundreds of millions. Still, it was nothing compared to the Vance family fortune. Over the next year, I buried myself in work, and the thoughts of Chloe slowly began to fade. Until the day a post about their wedding popped up in my newsfeed. A sharp, familiar ache pierced through my carefully constructed numbness. In the video, Chloe, having given birth, looked more stunning than ever. Her confidence radiated as she moved through the crowd of guests, a perfect hostess. But the camera barely lingered on the groom. Every time Julian was on screen, he was hunched over, seized by a coughing fit. "Son of a bitch is still alive," I muttered. I went down to the high-tech gym in my new mansion, stripped down to shorts, and started wailing on the custom-made heavy bag with Julian Vance's face printed on it. As my business grew, it was inevitable that I'd have to interact with the Vance Corporation. We were adults, and I wasn't going to let personal grudges torpedo my company's future. The truth is, the bigger the company, the easier they are to deal with. Our collaborations were always smooth and highly profitable. I saw Chloe again in person at her company's new product launch. She was in charge of a significant portion of the Vance empire now. Dressed in a sharp power suit, she commanded the stage, her presence formidable as she expertly presented the new tech to the audience. She was so self-assured, so captivating. I had to keep replaying her cruel words from that day on the street in my head to stop myself from getting lost in her again. The launch was a massive success, with several companies placing huge orders on the spot. At the celebration dinner that night, Chloe moved through the room, glass in hand, laughing and networking. The sight twisted my stomach. I escaped to the quiet of the outdoor terrace and downed my whiskey in one gulp. You know, for a guy with a bad stomach, you drink a lot. Cough, cough. You're going to kill yourself. The voice was unmistakable. The man I'd fantasized about strangling in my sleep countless nights. I turned. Julian Vance was rolling toward me in a motorized wheelchair. "Long time no see," he said, extending a bony hand. "It has been a while," I said, ignoring his hand. "Still not dead, I see." His expression faltered for a second before he chuckled and retracted his hand. "You've changed a lot, Mr. Hayes. 2 years ago, you were a bum on the street. Now you're a titan of industry. It's a miracle, really." His tone was different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a strange calmness. "You've changed too," I shot back. "You used to be a spoiled brat playing gangster. Now you look almost respectable. What is it they say? People get nicer when they're about to die." He wasn't provoked. Instead, a flicker of what looked like shame crossed his face. "We've had 2 conversations, Mr. Hayes, and you've mentioned my death in both. Do you really want me gone that badly?" "More than anything." I turned my back on him. "Haha, well, you might just get your wish soon." I ignored him and was about to walk away when a soft voice stopped me. "Why are you leaving just as I get here?" Chloe was walking toward us. She draped a small cashmere blanket over Julian's legs, tucking it in carefully. "The butler said he couldn't find you, so this is where you were hiding." She was so gentle, so caring. "And Leo," she said, smiling at me, "are you leaving because of me? You really don't want to see me that much." I forced a smile. "Not at all. I was just feeling so good after hearing what Mr. Vance had to say. I thought I'd go grab a celebratory drink. We were professionals, after all. We could maintain appearances." "Oh, what was the good news? Share it. Let me be happy too," Chloe said, leaning down to speak to Julian. He looked awkward. "It was nothing. Just chatting. It's getting chilly out here. You should take care of yourself. Why don't you go rest? Mom and Dad can handle the party. It pains me to see you working so hard." I couldn't listen to another second of it. I turned to leave. "Leo, Mr. Hayes, wait." Chloe called out. "I have something to talk to you about." "Sorry, Ms. Vance," I said, not bothering to turn around. I ate plenty inside. This whole scene is a little too rich for my blood. She straightened up and walked over to me, a polite, apologetic smile on her face. Julian, taking the hint, quietly wheeled himself away. Chloe held out a VIP card. "This is for our investor conference the day after tomorrow. We're launching a major collaborative project. I'd be honored if you would attend." I knew this was a huge opportunity for my company. I was long past the age of cutting off my nose to spite my face. I took the card with both hands. "Thank you, Ms. Vance. I'll be there." My formal tone seemed to surprise her. She hesitated for a moment. "It's been a long time. Have you thought about finding someone new?" "No," I said flatly. "I'm done with that. I was a fool before. I've learned my lesson. Why settle for one tree when you can have the whole forest?" She managed a tight, awkward smile. We exchanged a few more meaningless pleasantries before I left. 2 days later, I attended the conference and became the second largest stakeholder in the new project, second only to the Vance Corporation. The venture was incredibly profitable. After that, our companies began to work together more frequently, but I never met with her again. Any business that involved her, I sent my VP to handle. I knew it was petty, but the memory of her abandoning me in the rain and the venom of her words when I was at my lowest, those were scars that would never fade. My bottom line was simple. We could be civil, but I never wanted to see her face again. I did try to date. Many smart, beautiful, successful women expressed interest in me. I went out with a few of them, but whenever things started to get serious, the face in front of me would blur and become Chloe's. After a few embarrassing incidents, I gave up entirely. A month later, Julian Vance died. As his company's biggest partner, I had to attend a funeral. On the way there, I practiced keeping a straight face, trying not to let my satisfaction show. But when I arrived and saw Chloe kneeling in front of the memorial, her beautiful eyes swollen to slits from crying, and a small, slender boy kneeling beside her, a boy who looked exactly like I did as a child, the tears I'd sworn off fell without permission. Seeing the woman and child who should have been mine, mourning another man with such gut-wrenching grief, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. After paying my respects, I stood to the side, watching. Chloe's sorrow was real. I'd known her my whole life. I could tell. The fantasy I'd clung to that she was only with him for the money, that she still loved me, shattered into a million pieces. Her heart had truly moved on. I went home and stared at the ceiling all night, my heart aching, not for Chloe this time, but for the son I could never claim, the boy who was kneeling at another man's funeral. Julian's death was a huge blow to his parents. Chloe took over the entire company. She had always been sharp, and years of grooming by the Vance family had turned her into a bona fide corporate powerhouse. The rumor was that since her husband's death, she'd become an ice queen, reserving her smiles only for her son and her in-laws. 5 years passed. I was in my office, buried in paperwork, when my assistant knocked softly. "Come in." "Mr. Hayes, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important." "Who is it?" I hated being interrupted. Unimportant visitors were always told to wait. "He's a young boy, maybe 10 or 11. But his clothes, his manners. He's clearly not from an ordinary family. I've shown him to the reception lounge. He's just a kid. Have him wait." My assistant nodded and left. I dove back into my work and promptly forgot about him. It wasn't until my stomach rumbled that I glanced at the clock. 2 p.m. I took off my glasses and rubbed the bridge of my nose. This was my life now. For years, I'd worked relentlessly, first to forget them, and now it was just a habit. As I walked out of my office toward the lounge, I glanced inside. A well-dressed boy was sitting perfectly straight on the sofa. That's when I remembered. I stepped into the room, and the moment our eyes met, we both froze. He was a mirror image of me. I didn't need an introduction. The boy stood up and greeted me politely. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice hoarse. "I lost track of time. You haven't had lunch, have you? Let's get something to eat." He smiled and nodded. I led him to the executive dining room, and the chef quickly prepared a few exquisite dishes. "Why are you here?" I asked, not touching my food. He wasn't shy. Hearing my question, he put down his fork. "Sir, I came to ask for your help." Hearing my own son call me sir felt like swallowing vinegar. "Go on." "Sir, can you please go see my mother? She's not doing well." "Did she send you?" I asked, my voice cold. "Will my visiting magically cure her? If she's sick, she needs a doctor." The words were cruel, especially in front of my son, but only I knew the hell I'd clawed my way through. I couldn't afford to feel sympathy for them. It would be a betrayal of my own survival. "Sir, please listen. My mom has been diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. She doesn't have much time left. She didn't send me. I found out because she passed out from the pain and had to be rushed to the hospital. While she was there, I read her journal, the one she keeps with her always. That's how I learned about you, too. She never forgot you. She got sick from years of depression and drinking. Please, I'm begging you." I held up a hand to stop him. "I'm sorry, but your family's problems don't concern me. Finish your meal, and then you should go." I stood up to leave. Suddenly, I felt a tug on my pant leg. I looked down. He was on his knees, clutching my leg, his handsome young face streaked with tears. "Dad, this is the first time in my life I have ever begged you for anything. Mom is running out of time. Please." In the end, I went with him. We drove to their mansion. As he opened the door to her bedroom, the sterile smell of antiseptic hit me like a wall. The room was outfitted with more medical equipment than a hospital ICU. Chloe was propped up in bed, supported by a nurse. "Ethan, where have you been?" she asked, her voice weak. Then she saw me, standing behind him. She was so thin she was almost unrecognizable. Her hair was gone, and her skin was a deathly pale, making her already large eyes seem enormous in her shrunken face. Her gaze locked on mine, and for a second, a light flickered in their depths. Then, panic, she fumbled for the wig on her nightstand, hastily putting it on and smoothing the wrinkled fabric of her pajamas. She asked the private doctor and Ethan to leave us alone. As my son left, he gave me a look filled with desperate hope, a silent plea for me to be kind. When we were alone, she looked at me with an expression of pure love, a look so familiar, yet so foreign it made my head spin. "I'm so glad you came to see me," she whispered, her voice a raspy shadow of what it once was. My heart remained a stone in my chest. "I think you're glad too soon. I didn't want to come." Your son got on his knees and begged me. The light in her eyes died. She lowered her head, tears welling up as she picked nervously at her fingernails, looking utterly lost. After a long silence, she spoke again. "It's been years. Are you doing well?" "Couldn't be better," I said, listing off every good thing I could think of. "Body's in great shape, business is booming, can run up 6 flights of stairs without breaking a sweat." I even threw in the fact that my dog had just had a litter of adorable puppies. But I didn't see disappointment in her eyes. Instead, her smile deepened, filled with genuine relief. She even let out a soft, happy laugh a few times as I spoke. To know that you're healthy, successful, and happy. That's all I needed, she said. Leo, you should find someone. Settle down, have a few kids. Her gaze clouded over. I promised Julian that Ethan would always carry his name. I couldn't go back on that. It's the one thing I feel I truly wronged you on, but It's fine. I cut her off, though her words still stung. I understand. You two were deeply in love. Besides, I'm not exactly short on female company these days. I can have as many kids as I want. She sniffled, tears streaming down her face, but her smile never wavered. I know I hurt you more than you can ever forgive. I never expected you to. Her emotions seemed to overwhelm her, and she broke into a violent coughing fit. It ended with her spewing a mouthful of blood onto the white sheets. Her already fragile form seemed to deflate. Seeing her like that, the ice around my heart finally cracked. I panicked. I opened my mouth to shout for the doctor, but she grabbed my arm. Leo, she gasped. At the end, I want you to be with me. Please, just hold me. Numbly, I walked to the bed and gathered her frail body into my arms. I wiped the tears and blood from her face and straightened her crooked wig. You know, Leo, cough. The happiest time of my life was when we were kids at the home. Even now, I still dream about it, she whispered, her voice so faint I had to lean in. You were always trailing behind me, like my little shadow. When someone hurt you, you'd come crying to me, and I'd go fight your battles for you. Cough, cough. Her breathing was shallow, punctuated by ragged coughs. When I won, you'd clean my cuts with a damp cloth you kept just for me. Then you'd unwrap one of those caramel candies you always saved and pop in my mouth, asking if it was sweet. A beautiful,